Harry's wife, no deportation. You are aware that as a consequence of his disclosures about his drug use, that Harry's visa application and entry to the United States has come under scrutiny. A Freedom of Information request wants to see the documentation that was lodged to ascertain, did Prince Harry disclose that he'd taken drugs, as is required to do when he sought entry to the United States, or did he fail to do so and therefore has lied? Or if he did, what was the treatment of that disclosure, and how was he allowed then to be admitted to the United States when ordinarily people who admit to taking drugs are not allowed entry to that country? A Freedom of Information request has been made, was initially refused, and an appeal has been lodged. Of course, this has led to speculation that there is the possibility that Harry could be deported as a consequence of either a failure to disclose this information or public pressure amounting because he would be seen to be given special treatment. However, interestingly, in an article by Aurora Bassotti in the Express, the suggestion is that he would avoid deportation despite the mounting pressure for the visa papers release. Prince Harry could be spared being deported from the United States for his drug use, a celebrity lawyer has claimed. The Duke of Sussex has been facing mounting pressure to release his visa details after admitting in his book, Wah, he has taken recreational drugs to cope with his trauma when he was younger. Hundreds of Britons have been denied entry into the United States because of their drug use, but attorney James J. Leonard argued Harry is unlikely to face any consequences for his actions. Now, why might that be? Is it once again that Harry's going to be afforded some kind of special treatment? Is Harry's wife leaning on people to ensure that he can remain? Well, Leonard, who represented Real Housewives of New Jersey's Joe Giudice in his deportation hearing, argued the only scenario likely to result in a threat of deportation would be if the Duke had been involved in a criminal case over his drug use, i.e., he was convicted of possession or that charges were brought. Speaking to the Mirror, the lawyer said, I do not envisage any viable scenario where revelations in a memoir related to experimental and recreational drug use would lead to any immigration consequences for Prince Harry. Where this would become an absolute issue is if there was a criminal case of any kind, and if those allegations were related to drugs or alcohol, and it was determined that he was a habitual user, which I do not believe is the case here, that would raise concerns and create real problems. Interestingly, he makes reference to there not being habitual use, although there is much speculation that Harry is a regular user, particularly of the ganj. Leonard added, should a scenario like that occur, which I don't see happening, Prince Harry's status as a royal would make subject to the review of his matter to heightened scrutiny, which would likely have a detrimental effect on the outcome. Harry has been facing demands from the conservative think tank, the Heritage Foundation, to release the details of the visa application he filled out to enter the country in 2020. The foundation argues US taxpayers are entitled to know whether he declared his drug use, and if so, to question if he received preferential treatment and was allowed in despite strict immigration regulations. Responding to the Heritage Foundation's demands, a spokesman for the US State Department said, visa records are confidential under Section 222F of the Immigration and Nationality Act. Therefore, we cannot discuss the details of individual visa cases. Harry opened up about his drug use in Spare and later expanded on what had brought him to use psychedelics in a televised therapy session with Dr. Gabor Mate. The Duke claimed the drugs helped him peel back the filters of his life and made him feel relaxed. He said it was the cleaning of the windscreen, the removal of life's filters, these layers of filters. It removed it all for me and brought me a sense of relaxation, relief, comfort, a lightness that I managed to hold back for a period of time. And then afterwards, the absolute munchies. I started doing it recreationally and then started to realise how good it felt. I beg your pardon, I realised how good it was for me. Accordingly, this celebrity lawyer suggests that whatever comes out of the disclosures, if anything, concerning the Freedom of Information request that has been submitted by the Heritage Foundation, it's unlikely that this will lead to deportation for Harry. What might this mean, of course, for Harry's wife? Well, naturally, his deportation could amount to disengagement. It would be a threat to her control over him, and if he were deported and had to return to the United Kingdom, she would not be following him. Indeed, she would most likely utilise this as an excuse to disengage from him, stay in the United States, cause him problems with regard to the children, and then start to seek out a new primary source. The fact is that he is unlikely to be deported means that he's less likely to escape her grip, and for the current time is going to remain subject to her holding on to him. The fact is that if he were deported, that would actually provide him with the firebreak that he would need to be removed from her to reduce his emotional thinking and enable other people to spend time with him to get him to see what has actually happened. The fact is, sitting Harry down for 20 minutes and saying to him, look, your wife's a narcissist, look at how she's behaved, etc., would get absolutely nowhere. Even if this were to come from a trusted family member or friend, he is so indoctrinated with regard to the way that his wife controls him and the way that his wife has caused him to see the world, that a 20-minute or 30-minute chat about it would just result in him rejecting it. He would likely say, oh, don't you start, I'm sick of hearing people telling me that she's this, you don't know her the way that I do, you don't understand, she's helped me, etc., utterly blinded. However, if he were deported, and therefore he would end up spending a significant amount of time away from her, this would provide the relevant people with an opportunity to, in effect, reprogram him, to remove the brainwashing that he's been subjected to enable his emotional thinking to drop because he's no longer in the 5 arenas of interaction with the narcissist, thus allowing in effect his brain to become defogged, and then presenting the evidence that he's more able to actually understand it and apply the logic of what he's being told. Given the fact that deportation is unlikely, notwithstanding the admitted drug use, the fact is he's going to remain within her clutches for a while longer yet. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.